But Michael's project was about far more than simply building a boat. Behind it lies the remarkable story of James Morrill, a real shipwreck survivor. After his ship sank, Morrill drifted on a raft outside the Great Barrier Reef for 42 days before finally reaching safety. Michael wanted to place himself in a similar situation to better understand that experience. This challenge inspired him to begin the entire project. For 14 months, he worked using tools similar to those Morrill would have had available. He was not merely building a canoe, he was recreating an experience. His vessel featured a double outrigger design, blending traditional craftsmanship with modern Western techniques. Equipped with a sail that harnessed the power of the wind, it was capable of carrying him forward across long distances. But these canoes have always represented far more than transportation. In many cultures, they are deeply connected with ceremonies such as weddings, initiation rituals, funerals, and offerings to ancestors. Their surfaces are often decorated with symbolic artwork and intricate carvings that preserve history and pass it from one generation to the next. A dugout canoe is not simply a boat, it is a bridge between the past and the present. The knowledge, craftsmanship, and stories behind these vessels are traditionally taught by elders to younger generations so that the heritage is never lost. Even today, many communities continue working to preserve these ancient skills. These stories are not only thrilling adventures, they are living pieces of history. They tell of people who crossed oceans, ventured into the unknown, and achieved what once seemed impossible. And Michael wanted to become part of that story himself. From a single trunk tree emerged not just a canoe, but an entire journey, a dream slowly transformed into reality.
This man's name is Michael Atkinson, an adventurer, filmmaker, and former military pilot. A significant part of his life was spent serving in the Australian Defence Force, where he did much more than simply fly aircraft. He mastered survival skills and later passed those same skills on to people who work in life-threatening environments every day. But there comes a point when learning and teaching alone are no longer enough. A person begins to wonder where their own limits truly lie and wants to test them firsthand. Michael decided to do exactly that. He set himself an extraordinary challenge: to carve a small boat entirely by hand from the trunk of a massive tree, and then sail it alone for 1,500 kilometers along Australia's Great Barrier Reef. It sounds like madness, but in reality, it is even more difficult than it seems. This was not a modern boat, it was a dugout canoe, created from a single tree trunk. For thousands of years, civilizations around the world have used this ancient method. Back then, there were no machines or advanced tools, only skilled hands and endless patience. Although the process appears simple, it requires incredible precision. The inner wood of the tree is gradually removed while the outer shell is carefully preserved, because that outer layer becomes the main body of the canoe that keeps it afloat. This is also where the greatest risk lies. Remove too much wood and the structure becomes weak. Remove too little and the canoe becomes too heavy to float properly. Every strike of the tool, every cut, and every decision can mean the difference between success and failure.
One of the greatest strengths of a dugout canoe is its simplicity. It has no separate parts and no joints. It is carved from a single solid log. This makes it remarkably strong, durable, and long-lasting. Throughout history, these canoes have been used for transportation, fishing, and even warfare. Yet one thing always varied: the design. Different communities built their boats according to their local environment. Some needed vessels for rough seas, others for fast-flowing rivers, and some for calm waterways. As a result, the shape, weight, and construction of each canoe evolved to suit its surroundings. The timber Michael selected was no ordinary wood. It was a Norfolk pine log weighing nearly 4 tons. Native to Norfolk Island in the South Pacific, this species is known for being tall, straight, and relatively lightweight inside. One of its greatest advantages is its excellent buoyancy, making it far less likely to sink. That is precisely why it has long been considered an ideal material for building boats. However, hollowing out the log was only part of the challenge. It also had to be made durable. Ancient craftsmen relied on tools such as axes, chisels, and even fire. Yes, fire.
They would burn the inside of the log and then scrape away the charred wood, slowly creating the hollow interior. It sounds complicated, but it was an incredibly precise technique. Fire softened the wood and made it easier to remove, but even a small mistake could destroy the entire log. Despite the risks, this method produced some of the world's largest and longest-lasting canoes. Because they were carved from a single piece of timber with no seams or weak joints, they resisted damage in water and could survive for many years. Yet strong wood alone was not enough. The canoe also had to be completely waterproof. This is where the ingenuity of indigenous peoples truly shone. They collected natural resins, gums, and tree pitch, all of which were sticky and water-resistant. These materials were used to seal cracks, tiny openings, and carved sections of the canoe. The result was a smooth, watertight surface that prevented water from entering. These natural sealants not only kept the canoe dry, but also protected the wood from decay, greatly extending its lifespan.